Hey, y'all, get Doug Gore here with the Spray Wash Academy with another segment with Brandon Sersch with the Superior Soft Wash Systems. And what city and town are you located in?
I am in north central Wisconsin in a small city called Wausau, but I really focus on the Madison, Milwaukee, Minneapolis areas, things like that. So I'm willing to travel.
Willing to travel, basically willing to go all over the United States, kind of a thing. Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely.
A lot of the guys doing the drones are. And so in this segment, we're going to talk a little bit about flight times. We're going to talk a little bit about restrictions, limitations, those sorts of things. And Brandon, tell us again, just very briefly about yourself, and then we'll go ahead and get into some of this.
Yeah, I got involved with roof cleaning 12 years ago, and just started making that evolve. Learned through, got involved with soft wash systems, and got into the soft washing industry, and just wanted to keep going with it. And once with the advent of drone cleaning, I kept going with that. Have a little bit of experience in the ag world as well. So
very good. So what do you think is the greatest difference between the ag world and the spray wash world?
The regulations. The biggest difference is tons of regulations with the ag world. Mm-hmm. So you really have to be on top of your game with that, and be do your diligence to learn all that stuff. The chemicals for egg spraying are way different than the chemicals for cleaning, but I think that'll be coming down the road for us in cleaning as well.
Mm-hmm. So the biggest aspect for you really isn't about the flying of the drone or things of that nature. It's more about the chemicals, correct?
The chemicals, when it comes to the actual operations side, mm-hmm. When you're doing ag, you're generally operating in a pretty open area, mm-hmm. where you're going to be, I'm not going to say that you're not going to have wind shear issues and turbulence and things like that, but it's pretty open. I've experienced way less turbulence flying in an open field rather than in a city environment or an urban environment. So yes, the way the drones handle in the cleaning world is way different. Way different.
So this segment's going to start off kind of a little bit about flight times and all that sort of thing. So you had in a previous segment, you had said something about you own both the Lucid and the Apelix. And so in looking at that in realistic fashions, because we always hear, now I believe that they run the same batteries. Is that correct?
No, they do not.
And as I'm saying that, and before I get, I think it's the Apelix and the Aqualine run the same batteries. If I'm not.
Yes, that could be. You could be correct there. The Lucid that I have runs a different LiPo battery. They are a 15,000 milliamp hour battery. Mm-hmm. I do believe they bumped that up on the Sherpa. Mm-hmm. But yes, the Apelix has much higher. I do believe it's 28,000 milliamp, mm-hmm. if I remember correctly. But flight times, things like that. Yeah, a little bit of difference in batteries.
So what are you getting now? Your Lucid is a little bit of an older version. I mean, it's only 2 years old, but again, things are moving so quickly, and batteries have changed and all this kind of stuff. But what's the realistic flight time you feel like you're getting out of your batteries for the Lucid?
In optimal conditions, I'd say in optimal conditions on the average 5-story building that I would be working on, I'm gonna get about 15 minutes on average in optimal conditions.
Mm-hmm. And what would you say that would be? Same scenario, same conditions for the Apelix?
I don't have a lot of experience with the Apelix just yet, but roughly 22 to 23 minutes on average. Mm-hmm. So, you're getting a few more minutes of flight time there.
Yeah.
So,
and when you're looking at flight times and all that, how important do you feel like pilot fatigue is?
That's a cause for concern, to be honest. Sitting there in the head up, the head up posture is not always the greatest thing to do. But then again, I mean, that's what we talked about in the other segment. Having a large enough area blocked off to help with that is, that's another thing I would help with for sure. But yeah, that fatigue, I don't see an issue with fatigue long term, with like the difference in the batteries on the between a Pelix and Lucid. The fatigue would really come from just being there all day.
Just being there all day, right?
Yeah.
So that goes into that question of if you have a large project that you're looking at, what are some realistic timeframes that you should say to yourself, okay, this job would normally take me 3 days with a with a lift, and so for that I should plan on 1 day or 2 days with a drone. But how long should my days be? What's a realistic time frame safety wise is kind of where I'm going with that, where when you start getting tired and worn out and you've been looking up all day, there's going to be a factor that falls into play there that now safety is being diminished. So what's your thoughts on that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Those when you talk about planning a job, when I look at planning a job or quoting a project, anything like that, I plan on looking at it and saying, hey, this should take me 3 days in optimal conditions, but I'll plan for 5 just because of wind, weather, things like that. It's a saying that you hear a lot across the country is if you don't like the weather, wait 5 minutes.
Yeah.
It's, everywhere where I work, that's how it is. But man, yeah, you got to plan accordingly. And also you can utilize that time to take breaks, things like that. I'll tell you what, yeah, fatigue, working with the safety side, fatigue can be a huge issue. You don't want to miss things. You don't want to get complacent and trip over things. Man, there's safety is such a huge concern. It really is.
Right.
And I mean, I've worked in a lot of urban areas that even my visual observer is getting fatigued, and we've had people walk right underneath our drones when we're flying, and it's really terrified me. And that's when we're working in some of those areas, we just ask that the project manager just have the entire area fenced off. So, yeah, I think really, like, you gotta plan accordingly. And when you're quoting the projects, that's another thing why when we quote these projects, you got to be willing to quote them for a whole week sometimes, or double the amount of time that you think it'll take, just in case you run into some of those issues. And I don't know how much. I'm sorry, I don't know how many. I don't know how many pilots each cleaning company has out there. I know at my disposal, I have 3 to 4. So if I can plan a project where I can have an extra pilot there, I'll definitely do it so we can actually switch off.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty important thing. Having multiple pilots, I think it could be very beneficial. So, which was actually taking me another direction. So, the VO, the visual observer that you were mentioning a moment ago, do you feel like having a visual observer is important on every single job, some of the jobs, few of the jobs? And what do you see as the role of that visual observer?
It's going to be all dependent on the actual scope of work for the project, location, things like that. Again, we're working in more and more urban environments doing this stuff, and quite honestly, people don't pay attention.
Right.
Like I said, people walked right underneath the drone. I don't know if they didn't pay attention. I was focusing on, I was focusing on flying, but I remember saying, "Hey, I'm going to shut her down." And I just looked down at the remote, look at my battery usage, and there was somebody right in front of me directly underneath that drone. And these are things that need to be addressed and need to be taken into consideration when planning a project. I don't think it's out of line to start saying that people need to start developing some SOPs for things like that, and
Right.
really take that part of it seriously.
Switching back to the batteries a little bit, you've had the Lucid for about 2 years. Have you had to recycle the batteries yet? Have you had to do anything, or are you still running the same batteries?
I am still running the same batteries. I've had one issue with the batteries. Actually, I just stored all of my batteries recently for the Lucid, and all the cells were fine, things like that.
So they're maintaining their life, because
Yes.
I've heard different things on the lifespans of the batteries. I've heard, about 200, or I think it's 200 minutes or something, that nature is about what you're going to get out of them. I've heard, every year you're going to replace the batteries, and they can be very expensive, especially in today's day and age. Things are going up from there. So the longevity of the batteries, I think, is important when you're looking at the overall cost, because going down that same rabbit hole and talking about flight times and all that, if we're only getting, let's just make a generalized argument that we're getting 20 minutes out of a set of batteries. Okay. How many sets of batteries are actually needed to be able to complete a full day? And again, going back to that, what is a full day? So how many sets of batteries do you need for a full day? And what really is, for safety reasons, what is a full day?
Yeah. A full day is, across the board, most people would say 8 hours. But it all depends on location, things like that. I've actually had to work on a project where we only had a 4-hour window of time to work just because of the location,
Right.
And the amount of foot traffic that was there. I had talked to another drone pilot recently that had something very similar, and I think he said down in Nashville. So you got a 3-hour window between bar time and the time that the streets open up. So you got to manage your time that way. Again, like, battery management is probably one of the biggest management struggles that we'll have. For myself, I focused on buying another, double the amount of batteries that I initially purchased. So I bought another 4 sets of batteries, and I have another charger, and that helps with managing the batteries.
So how many sets of batteries per drones do you think is a realistic need or a realistic must when you're looking at purchasing a drone?
It depends on the charge times, charge cycle times, and the flight time that you generally get. But with my Lucid, I would say 6 sets of batteries and 2 chargers is going to keep you going all day without stopping, if that's what your ultimate goal is. But here's the thing too, to keep in mind, like, you're going to be picking up and moving from one side or the other. There's a lot of different things there with the Apelix. I don't have a lot of experience with the battery management, but I've heard and experienced that it's not as much of an issue. But it's just something that has to be managed.
Right.
The drones are a tool, and we're going to use a tool that works best for the project that we're on, regardless of the manufacturer.
So you and I have not had this particular question or conversation or anything like that. So I'm going to throw a twist at you, and I'm going to see if you catch it just because. You ready?
Sure.
How fast can a drone clean?
As fast as whatever you're cleaning comes clean.
Because
It's
you just mentioned something, right? You said that the drone is nothing more than a tool. So this is something I've been going over with back and forth with people when they say, how fast can that drone clean? I say, well, the drone absolutely can't clean. It has no capability of cleaning. The drone has zero capability of cleaning, right? All it is it's another tool to lift up your cleaning apparatus, your cleaning equipment. It's like a wand in the air. That's all it is. It has zero cleaning capability. So I had to throw that kind of twist at you there just to see, kind of having fun.
I like how you express that or explain that too, because it definitely helps. That's a good way to explain it to people. That question doesn't come up very often with me. It's more along the lines of what the capabilities are. And I like the caveat to that is just what are its limitations. So, and it really comes down to the pilot and what you're really feeling is a safe operating experience or environment with the drone. So, but yeah, you're absolutely right. It's just a tool to carry the nozzle up to the surface you're cleaning.
So along that, you mentioned capabilities and you mentioned limitations. In that discussion, what would you say are the greatest capabilities of the drone, and what would you say are the greatest limitations of the drone?
The capabilities really, I think, are the good capabilities that we have is that we're able to provide a service without using lifts and ladders and things like that in certain applications. Again, I've utilized lifts for some of my drone projects. It's what we had to do. It's just, again, it's a tool to utilize. And the more creative you are when it comes to utilizing that tool, the more useful it will be. But again, you need to understand its limitations. We're not going to be able to buy a drone and clean the Willis Tower in Chicago. It's just not going to be possible.
So I'm not going to win that bid. Okay, got it.
Yeah, sorry. I already got it.
Yeah, there you go.
No, the limitations, those are the things that aren't talked about enough, I really believe. And after being parts of some of the Facebook groups and things like that, my concern is that we're getting a lot of people, we're flooding the industry with a lot of drones, with a lot of people that don't understand the limitations of the drone. You're really limited to the weight of what you're going to get up there.
And that's kind of like where I'm coming from too, and where I'm pushing is that, we hope to end up again representing all of the different brands. But at the end of the day, the Spray Wash Academy is going to represent the industry, not the drones in particular, kind of a thing, and the reality of it. So, I've been asked about, well, how many drones do you think will enter the pressure washing space, if you would? And that's a hard thing to put a number on. But I said, what I believe is going to happen is over the next year to year and a half, there's going to be an influx of drones and operators and this sort of thing. And after that, I think it's going to level off and then take a kind of a steep dive down where you're going to have a lot of people purchasing. Before I started doing this, interestingly enough, I talked to many different people that had already purchased drones. And what surprised me the most is that they would say, well, I bought one. I've had it for about a year now. I've used it maybe 3 times, but I actually hire somebody else to come and do my drone work for me. And I think that's going to be kind of a key factor in how this all flows together. Somebody that focuses on the drones and focuses on knowing what its true capabilities are and not, and what its limitations are, because that's something I think we really need to hone in on, focus on, and say, what are the limitations, not what are the capabilities, what are those limitations? And if we can help hone that down, we can probably better define how this industry is going to evolve using this technology. Does that make sense?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Honing down what we know to be the limitations of the drones is going to be it's going to be a big win for the industry as a whole, because like you said, these people are getting into the industry and buying drones and going, oh, I thought I'd use it more. Well, I see the same thing. What I've noticed is people buying drones and they're using them to clean a ranch roof, which I can do from the ground.
Right.
Things like that. It's like, why would you spend $40,000 on a tool to do that when you already have all the tools there, and you're going to make more money off of it doing it that way. But yes, I've seen a lot of people buying drones and not using them for what they really could use them for.
They open other doors and they realize that the doors that they thought they were going to use them to enter aren't the ones that they're entering, kind of a thing.
Yeah, it disrupts their business their business model that they currently have, and they really ended up not wanting to go down and go through that doorway of another business model. The question was posed on I do believe it was Facebook or LinkedIn. I don't remember where it was. One of those platforms, and somebody posed a question asking if I wanted to get into the drone business, what do you think is a good number to start with? And I discussed this with a few other drone pilots, and we're across the board saying, you plan on spending $200,000 if you want to be successful at it. But you're not going to be successful buying a drone and all the equipment and targeting residential cleaning.
Right. Well, I think to your point that I was going to say your bare minimum your thought process on your bare minimum should be about $100,000. And the reason I say that is because, again, just not really picking a particular drone and a particular price point or anything like that, but realistically, I think you want to look at $40,000 to $60,000 on the drone, simply because you need the drone, but you also need the extra batteries and maybe these extra pieces and parts and hose, whatever. So it's not just the cost of the drone. And then on top of that, if you don't have the right equipment to start with, now you need equipment to purchase, which can be another $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 in equipment. Now do you have the right vehicle on top of that? Now do you have the right insurance? All of these different things can easily take you up to that $100,000 mark. That, I know of one person in particular. Again, I won't mention names, but we had the discussion where he got into the industry. He has flown drones for many years. But had never washed before. And, that's a hard thing to swallow, because there's so much to learn just on the washing side before you get into the drone washing side, that I think, it's one of the things that we hope to help correct, if you would, by doing some good, proper education, that sort of thing. And to me, the education is really a big key factor in moving forward with any of this, if you would. So, looking at it from that aspect, if you're saying, okay, it's going to take, $100,000 to $200,000 to really launch and go good, and, marketing and, all these other different things that you're going to have to do. The other aspect, I think, of that is, if you look at it, I think some markets you're going to be able to do something very good in a local fashion. But I think a lot of it, most of the guys that are successful with this are traveling. They're going different locations. They're doing different things, and I think that that's also going to be kind of a key point and key factor to it. Along your point of the residential roofs, I had a guy ask me about residential roofs. I said I didn't think it was a great idea, but he did point out there are some caveats to that. In his area, there's a lot of barrel tile roofs, cement roofs, and slate roofs, and those are things where a drone could make sense if the homeowner doesn't want you walking on them. Like me, I do not recommend walking on a slate roof at all. Also, here in southern Louisiana, we've got some really steep roofs. And on the residential side, Cajun Softwash, my old company, they have a drone now. And I'm like, it would be beneficial to the company to send that drone out to do the tops of some of the, send it out to do 3 rooftops and then let the ground guys do the rest, that they can easily and safely reach from the ladder and not have to access the roof. So there to me, there are some aspects there, but for the most part, for residential, I just don't see it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it does have residential applications without a doubt. I've used it on residential applications, but I mean, as a tool, as what it is, it's not feasible to do for residential. I feel like it is a majorly commercial tool.
Exactly.
So, yeah, and that when I go back to that question, it was how the question was worded, and it was like it was actually worded along the terms of, if nobody has anything, any equipment, no vehicle, no nothing, what would it cost to do it with purchasing a drone from a manufacturer, right, things like that. I was curious to know kind of where he was going with it, because it's not like you're going to go and tape a hose onto a DJI Mavic 3 and then hook it up to your hot pressure washer and show up in a Honda Civic. This is.
And the reality is, you could get into it much, much cheaper, right? I know for a fact I can get a power washing drone for about $6,500. Okay. And the reason I know for a fact that I can pick one up for about $6,500 is because they come out of China, and good luck with that, right? I mean, that would probably be the biggest mistake you could ever make, in entering the drone world. And kudos to Roger Nunneman. Roger Nunneman is with Aqualine Drones, and he is the one that had brought that up to me at one point in time. Like, hey, you can get these drones out of China, and for $12,000. Well, I did a little research on that, found out you can actually get them for about $6,000, but there's no way I would actually do that. So, in looking at that, knowing that a good entry point, $100,000 to $200,000, let's just throw that out as the argument. Obviously, variables in there greatly. When you start looking at quoting prices on commercial projects, are you finding that if you were doing an original quote with using a lift or dropping from the roof or whatever, are you finding that the quotes are coming in comparable? Are you higher with the drone? Are you lower with the drone in general? Or how do you feel like that actually plays out?
Well, a recent project that I did, it was definitely lower with the drone, just because of the layout of the project, the scope of work, things like that. I feel in the end I was a little light on the quote, and I think I could have definitely bid the job for more and still got it, but it was a very difficult job. The scope of work was not what I would call easy, but I collaborated with 4 other drone pilots on this project before we actually pulled the trigger on it. And there was a lot of discussion about getting it done. But we did agree that we could get it done for that price, and we just everything. All the cards fell in the right. All right, so all the cards fell together correctly, and we were able to pull this project off, even with the difficulty. I'd say out of the difficulty, out of a 0 to 10, this one was a 13. It was difficult, but the collaboration really helped. So, but I'll say this. I spent months on the phone talking to even safety rigging companies like 3M and Sala and things like that, looking at ways to clean this roof from the rooftop. Mm-hmm. And it really came down to there is no way to do that because it would cost so much money to get certified anchors on this roof. Mm-hmm. So we managed to get it done without getting on that roof.
And how tall was that roof?
So it varied. The roof itself varied from about 50 feet to 90 feet, about 95 feet. So it depended on where we were around the perimeter of the building.
Gotcha. So going back to the question of in general terms, would you say that quotes are pretty much even, pretty much higher, pretty much lower? What would you say kind of across the board if you were able to average it out, which we know that there is no average, but if you were able to, quotes generally less?
Yes, absolutely. Across the board, it's window cleaning, surface cleaning, anything like that. It's across the board less with the advent of this, with the usage of these tools, mm-hmm. for sure. So I couldn't give you a percentage exactly, right. But it's.
So going back along those lines, though, time frame wise, because I think we kind of talked about this efficiency thing. On the efficiency side of it, I don't know if we have, and maybe we did. Did we kind of narrow down about an efficiency factor or rating, let's say, about how much more efficient a drone is over traditional methods?
No, not really, but it is. I will say this: it is more efficient. It is more time efficient than traditional methods. Mm-hmm. Window cleaning, it is more efficient. Roof cleaning, it is more efficient, but that also comes with time and experience.
Right.
When I first started cleaning with it, it was not what I would call efficient. It took a lot of time to learn. It took a lot of time to learn the nuances of using a drone to clean. Even though, all we're doing is basically mounting a hose to a drone, mm-hmm. and flying the nozzle up to the surface. But learning the winds and things like that, it took a lot. It took a great deal of time. And that's when, we touch base on time for safety. I'd say there's no amount of time to say that you're going 100%. To be 100% efficient. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Here's the thing: when I learned when I dealt with OSHA in my previous job was you'll never eliminate the human factor. Mm-hmm. So that's always got to be in the back of your mind.
Yeah, and no matter what you do, there's always things that come up that are unexpected, that aren't planned for. Somebody comes walking out a door that you had blocked off. There's what I like to call an ankle breaker, a little hole in the ground, and you're walking, and there's no way to see it. There's a sprinkler head that is sticking up. That all the sprinklers are down, but the pop-up sprinkler head didn't go down, and nobody saw it, so you trip over it. There's so many different factors that could come into play to change the parameters of everything at any given point in time. That's why safety should be one of those key factors and key parameters for you. So, Brandon, I think we're right there time frame wise. Is there anything you would like to add, or any parting thoughts that you would like to give to everybody?
Not really. I just wanted to touch base on what you just mentioned. Reminded me, I was talking with another drone pilot that there's, again, don't be scared to walk away from a project when you get there, and even the surrounding environment is not what you initially thought it was going to be. Things like that. That did create some issues for a drone pilot recently. And, it's just things to look out for in that aspect. But
Right.
parting
Well, along
thoughts.
that lines, even though I said we were checking out, we'll check in just for a few more minutes, and that is, talking about that and the time frame that it takes to learn and be able to do. You go out on a job that you would say to yourself, my normal way of cleaning, I would have gotten this done in one day, and it takes you a day and a half with the drone when you very first, start learning that. You have to keep in mind that, as with anything, there is a ramp up time. There's just a learning curve and all that. So, one of the things that I used to tell people in the industry is, about giving yourself a raise. When you become more efficient, that is your raise. You should still be pricing things correctly to get the job done. And, you can't necessarily base it on your time initially, because it's going to take you too much longer to do it until you learn and become efficient at it. Once you become efficient, you get better and better and better. Now you're giving yourself an inherent raise just by learning your craft, honing your skills, practicing. If you're going to go out there and you're going to fly, you're going to spend, 40, 50, 100, $200,000 on a drone setup, and you're going to fly that thing once every couple of months, your efficiency is never really ever going to get there. Right.
Correct.
So you're never going to be giving yourself that proverbial raise.
Yeah. We have a phrase we use in skydiving industry that we call currency. You have to be current. And that is a huge that was a huge eye opener for me when it came to the safety factor. Skydiving itself is very safe as long as you are doing the right things, and as long as you're current. Taking a break from the skydiving sport creates its own safety factor, safety issues. So that's why if you're not current, depending on your skill level, you'll have to go and jump with an instructor or a coach or an examiner just to say, hey, so they can say, hey, you are safe enough to jump and things like that. So I think that applies even in the drone world, where I'm at. I'm willing to travel too, because I don't, being up in the Midwest, we only got 7 months to clean. 8 if we're lucky. But
have you looked at any de-icing projects?
Yeah, I've discussed it here and there. There's not a great deal of use for that up here. One of the things we're going to dabble with is ice dam removal up here. But we're going to utilize, we can't utilize chemicals here just because it's just the ice gets way too thick. I mean, when I was offering that service before I got drones, I mean, it's an entire day process just to do one house.
Right.
And the ice dams we'll be removing will be sometimes 3 or 4 feet up the roof at 1.5 feet thick of ice. So that's all. It has its own nuances as well. But we were utilizing steam instead of water on that one. So. But yeah, another thing, pricing these things. When you get into this industry, if you really want to get into it, that's another thing. People really don't have a clue about what they're doing. And just I've learned so much over time that there's people now, even just recently, I had somebody reach out to me. They wanted to subcontract me to help clean with a project that they quoted, and they underquoted it for, quite honestly, 5 times lower than what I would have quoted it. I'm like, there's no way. Like, I don't know, and I don't know how they were making money at it.
Right.
I really don't. So,
I think
that kind of,
I think it's that way kind of regardless of drone there's a lot of that we see where you look at where somebody has bid something and what they bid and you're just sitting there going, why would you do that? I mean, you are literally working for beer money at that point in time, if anything. And if that's what your goal is, great, but I kind of don't think that's what your goal was.
No, but I think we touched base on that earlier in the discussion. Yeah, there's a project here that somebody quoted cleaning an entire building for, I think the number was like $20,000 or $23,000. And they said they were going to show up with a drone and everything else, and they quoted the scope of work was cleaning the entire building. And when they walked away from the project and sent the invoice, all they did was clean the windows for $23,000. Never a drone showed up. None of the other scope of work was taken care of. So the municipality reached out to me and said, "Hey, what do you know anything about this? Or are you supposed to come and clean this?" I'm like, "No." It's these types of things are out there. Even like scams, like you hear about the scams. I've had somebody try scamming me, had me quote a job, project, things like that. And all they want to do is get my credit card information at the end. I'm like, I don't want to deal with that.
Yeah. By the way, when this is over, I'm going to have to get your credit card information from you.
Yeah. All right. I'll find one for you.
There you go. Yeah, it's actually funny. So this is going completely off the rails here, but I'll let you know. I actually have a gift card, right? And that gift card has like $1.16 or something on it. And so I use that to play with them sometimes. Oh yeah, here's my.
It's not a bad idea. Not a bad idea at all.
They're sitting there trying to run this credit card and it's not working because it's too much money, but it comes back as a valid credit card. So I think it's kind of fun. So, you kind of got to,
yeah, anyway. No, that's good. I would get a kick out of that, but yeah.
Anyhow,
I know you mentioned parting ways, Doug. Parting words really, for, the people that are in the industry already, do not hesitate reaching out to people that have experience on projects. Really, this is our time to collaborate. And right now, this industry is so new, we get to make the industry what it is, or we're going to break it. One of those things.
That's a very key point. I'll lift off on that as well, because I think with every industry that you look at where regulation comes into play, it's because of the bad actors and the bad apples, and it's one little incident that caused it. So if we can collaborate and help prevent those issues, we can kind of self-police within the industry. I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, that's what we've done with the ag industry. I've worked very closely with a guy recently, and we're working on things with the FAA. And he was a big driving force in shortening up the time it takes to get your Part 137. I'm gonna utilize him, his experiences, and his contacts to do the same thing for our industry. And I've already reached out to quite a few of the other drone pilots as well, just to touch base with them, because it's just a matter of time before the FAA gets down, starts cracking down on some of this stuff. So if we can be part of the solution before it becomes a problem, I think that's it's a good place to be.
Way to go. Very good. Well, Brandon, I truly appreciate you joining us, and really look forward to it. This has been a great safety thing. I think getting people pointed in the right direction will be a good thing versus all of the hype and hoopla, and making sure that things are done in a good fashion. So really appreciate you joining us, Brandon, and I thank you very much.
Yes, thank you, Doug.